Well, if I compared President Trump to Winston Churchill, heads would explode at CNN. But of course, heads explode at CNN every day. But the two have a lot in common. They really do. And according to the new book, Trump and Churchill, Defenders of Western Civilization, you'll find out why. To explain, we welcome best-selling author, speaker, and Fox News contributor, Nick Adams. Nick, it's great to see you again.
Governor, it's always a pleasure.
First of all, tell me how this idea came of comparing Donald Trump and Winston Churchill.
Well, Governor, I've been a lifelong admirer of both men. My father gave me a book on Winston Churchill's speeches when I was just 12 years old, and a couple of years later, when I was 14, I read The Art of the Deal. So I was a big fan of both men. Not much in common when you first look at them, but as soon as you start to drill down a little bit, Governor, as I did in my book, Trump and Churchill, you find that the two men are remarkably similar. There are incredible parallels between the men and the times. Neither concealed their true self or conformed to expectations. Both were plain speakers, clear thinkers, both alpha males, both had an acrimonious relationship with the media, both endured battles with the political establishment, and both followed, of course, monumentally weak predecessors.
You know, you mentioned the adversarial relationship that both of them had with the press. We certainly know that's true of Donald Trump, but a lot of people maybe are not aware that Churchill was constantly at loggerheads with the British press. They hated him. I mean, they beat him up all the time.
Yeah, they hated him, Governor, and in my book, we've gone and reproduced excerpts from British national newspapers in the late 1930s, early 1940s, and I tell you this, Governor, if I didn't say to you, these are excerpts about Winston Churchill from British national newspapers back then, if you just read the words, you would think that it was the New York Times or the Washington Post talking about Donald Trump. So identical are the criticisms. So identical are the accusations that are levelled. Doesn't take things seriously enough. Too optimistic. Doesn't listen to anybody around him. Too overconfident. I mean, it's constantly, we're seeing history repeat itself.
I'm sure you've had a lot of pushback and criticism, people saying, how dare you compare Donald Trump to Winston Churchill? Because, you know, over time, history tends to be nicer to people than in the contemporaneous moment. And at the time Churchill was vilified, he didn't even get reelected. People forget that he, after saving Britain, and he literally did, the people threw him out, for heaven's sakes.
They certainly did, but I don't think they're going to do that in November with Donald Trump.
Well, I hope not.
Yeah, you and me both, from your lips to God's ears, Governor. But, you know, I think that Donald Trump is going to be a president very much appreciated with the passage of time. He's going to be very much a Van Gogh president. I think this president's legacy is going to be that he took America back from the brink, and of course, with the world's fortunes traveling with the United States, what's good for America is good for the world. When America's strong, the world is strong. You don't have to take my word for that. We can look back at the world back when President Obama was in office.
Winston Churchill stood up against Hitler and the Nazis and built a British war machine and fought that kind of war that was literally bombing raids over London and Liverpool and the major cities. President Trump hasn't had that kind of war where we're being bombed, but I would say the pandemic has certainly been like a war that has changed every American's life. Are those parallels something you can draw from?
Without a doubt, Governor, without a doubt. First of all, I thought it was a very Churchillian phrase that President Trump decided to badge this coronavirus with. He called it the invisible enemy, something you might imagine Winston Churchill coming up with. And we do see in these times the leadership qualities of Churchill and Trump really come to the fore. I mean, this is a time when those kind of men are needed. And one of the things that I found in writing this book was that every single thing that had happened in both men's lives made them perfectly situated for the time and the challenges that they would encounter.
But it is a brilliant book and a very astute analysis, and I hope people will read it and really get the parallels. Thank you. Great to have you here. Hey, Keith, where can folks find a copy of Nick Adams' new book, Trump and Churchill, Defenders of Western Civilization? Tell us.
Well, it's available now at Amazon.com, or you can find it as his other books, plus video clips, speaker, booking info, social media links, and more, all at nickadamsusa.com. For the foundation and liberty and American greatness, visit flagusa.org. And on Twitter, follow @NickAdamsInUSA.